Welcome to the P2P podcast. Today we're going to be jumping into kind of the biggest project that this has ever been undertaken, and kind of with me are the two people that made it happen. I'm Riley Miller Davis, the host, and with me is my brother,
Hey, I'm Stuart Miller Davis.
and then
And
go on.
oh, sorry, did I cut in there?
Oh, I was
Yeah,
going to
you go
introduce you.
first, Riley.
No, I was just going to
Oh
introduce
yeah,
you. Jump in.
no, introduce me. I like that. Go for it.
And with us, per usual, is our commissioner Kevin, our
Yeah.
absolute, what's the right word here? Bull in a
No,
china shop
Commissioner
in the
Kevin's
best
good.
ways.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, no, I've never been described that way, but I like it. So, I usually think of those really athletic edge defenders in the NFL as a bull in a china shop, but I can, or the AJ Spellacies of the world, but I can take that.
See, I think you bull in your china shop to success.
you know, uh, I've been watching a lot of Parks and Rec, so at this point, I feel like you're just comparing me to Leslie Knope. But whatever, I can take it.
Everyone loves that
It could
character.
it could be way worse comparisons. Let's be real, especially in the sitcom world. So, alrighty,
Anyways,
let's.
so let's jump into this. Tell us about this project, Kevin.
Yeah, so this started out as just me being frustrated with bad trades, which I feel like every commissioner in dynasty hockey or in any fantasy sports, it doesn't even have to be a commissioner. People just get frustrated with bad trades, especially in dynasty where these trades they have just such long-term impact, especially if you're making deals with very young players and just young superstars in general. And the one thing you'll hear from a lot of people is like, well, I'm starting a rebuild, so I want to get rid of everybody that's like 24 or 25 and older. And it's in some cases I kind of get it, and then in other cases I'm just like, these guys have another 7 or 8 years of value. And if you don't think you can turn a team around in, 4 or 5 to let alone 6 to 8 years, then you're you might not be, you know, well, maybe not. It's not that you're not cut out for this. It's just you might not enjoy it that much if you're taking 8 years to rebuild. So the whole point is, I wanted to figure out what is the value of draft picks. What's the value of players, in certain tiers? What's the yeah, just what's the value of players, and what's the value of a player in year 10? What's the value of a player in year 15? What's the value of a player that's never played a game before? And that's something that Prospects to Pros and this project will really help you understand. So what I'm really excited to do throughout this project is kind of teach not only you, Riley, but just about everybody in Prospects to Pros or everybody that's new to fantasy hockey, the value of players. And I know that this project is 100% geared towards fantasy, but I will say, and Stuart will attest to this, I think our tiers do an incredible job of separating players in terms of their not only fantasy value, but their real life value. Stuart, do you want to touch on that for a second? Because it's something I've noticed throughout our, weeks of working on this.
Weeks, try months.
Yeah,
um,
it all blends together now.
yeah, well, I think as we were sort of going through and sorting the players, we sort of had an initial tier list, and then as we were going, we realized we needed to create some more tiers because some of the tiers were really big, and it didn't make sense to have some of the players at the top of the tier mixed in with some of the players at the bottom of the tier. And so we sort of found by adding more tiers, we sort of got groups of players that made sense and sort of, oh wow, that they've had similar careers, and they've had similar careers, and so it worked out pretty well that way, I think. In that, if you look at the the different players in the different tiers, they're about sort of what you would expect in sort of guys with similar profiles.
Yeah, and I think for us it was the tiers was something that wasn't the first part of the project. So Riley, You are doing a screen video, correct, right now?
I am. Yeah,
Awesome. All right. So can you go to the number 1 tab for me, please?
absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So we're just going to look at Alexander Ovechkin to start out. Um, okay. So if we look at the project, this is what, each basically pick tab looked like when I first started this project out. And the goal of this was I wanted to start with, I think I started with like 2017 or 2018. Like I wasn't going back too far originally because I didn't want to do a super deep dive. I just wanted to see like, oh, what's the kind of the value of number 1 picks, number 2, number 3 recently? Because I wanted to get an idea of like if you're trading back from one, how much value are you going to get at each individual pick. So originally I was not going back all the way to 2004, but the reason I went back that far was, and I think this is something Stuart might remember. Um, it was like, oh, I got to get McDavid. And then after that, it was like, well, I kind of want to get McKinnon because you can't really do a deep dive of this like current era and not include Nathan McKinnon. That would be blasphemy in terms of fantasy hockey deep dives. So, and then once you get past McKinnon, it's like, all right, I kind of want to include Tavares. And then at that point, it's like, all right, let's go to NHL.com and see how far I can get full data. And I'm just going to go as far back as I can go because at this point, what's the difference between 18 years and 22 or 25 years? Like, I don't care. It's all the same. So, yeah, it got to the point where I realized, I think 2005, 2006 was the last year that or the first year that they collected hits and blocks. There's one stat that they weren't collecting or they don't have displayed on the NHL site, which is why I believe John Carlson is now the NHL all-time blocks leader. So that's just a little weird stat to throw out there, but that might not be entirely accurate all-time. Like there might be players with more block shots. I just don't know if the NHL tracked it. So yeah, we went as far back as you can go with NHL.com, and I took their stats. I exported, I think it's like 10 sheets for each season, and I had to export, not only the summary sheet but like the power play data, and then I also had to export the miscellaneous to get the hits and the blocks. So there was, between the face-offs, the hits and the blocks, and all the other data, it was, like 30 spreadsheets that I had to export for each season. So sorting through it all was tedious, but once I had my, historical draft database from 2004 to 2006 completed, or not the database, sorry, but just the NHL data, that's when I could really start just adding picks to these spreadsheets and then just letting the data kind of fill in by itself. And that's where I kind of realized, oh, I can do a lot with this, because at this point I was starting to realize like, hey, we can go from pick 1 all the way to pick, and I think we originally said like, let's just go to pick 64, Stuart. Was that what we originally said?
That was our original goal, was let's get through to 64.
Yeah. But because I've been watching Parks and Rec, and my favorite character is Ron Swanson. And my favorite quote from his is never half-ass 2 things, full-ass 1 thing, or something like that. So this project goes all the way to pick number 224, which is the end of the 7th round. So yeah, we're gonna go through every single pick. Maybe not every single player and every single pick, but I think we'll go through at least every pick at some point. And we'll mention the hits, we'll mention the misses, some of the interesting players, the funny names. There's some cool stuff.
The percentages.
But yeah, there's a lot of data that we cover in this project.
So,
but
the main thing for today is, can you walk us through some of the glossary items? So, like, when
yeah,
you're
so
talking
the
about pulling
glossary.
this data, what are the data that you're looking at?
So if we just go from left to right at the top of the screen, you'll see the season column. That's pretty straightforward. It just starts at 2005 and goes all the way down to 2025, 22, 2026. So if you just look at Ovechkin here, then you can see, from year 1 to year 21. And then you'll see Alexander Ovechkin. He's in red the entire way down. The reason for that is now this is not quite, this is the one thing I'm going to add at the beginning. Because we're using NHL.com data, they don't have full position for fantasy. So like you're not going to see dual position players at all, which means the wingers, I wouldn't take any stock in the positional ranking for wingers. So this ties into the colors here. So you'll see anyone that's ranked 1 to 12 at the positional in their season gets a red, for their name. Anyone that's in, 13 to 24 is orange, 25 to 36 is yellow, 37 to 48 is green, and then 49 to 60 is blue. So you'll see for Ovechkin, because he's a top 12 player at his position every single year of his career, it's just a gigantic brick of red. He's the only player to ever do that. He's the only player that will ever do that. I'm gonna safely plant my flag and say that now. Like, unless he plays again next year and just falls off, he should be a top 12. Although I think he was like 18th or 20th on Fantrax this year at positionals, so technically he might have had an orange year here and there, but the point is it's incredible consistency for Ovechkin.
Well, depending on where you keep Draisaitl, if he's a center or a winger that pushes him down, that makes sense for Fantrax versus NHL.com.
Yeah. So if you keep going right to no, that's okay, Riley. I could go on tangents all day here. So if you want to add something, I'm not gonna be mad here.
You're good. So moving on to the scoring.
Oh no, it's okay. So yeah, onto the scoring with fantasy points per game. That's the FPPG column. That is just the total fantasy points a player scored throughout the regular season divided by their games played. Pretty simple. Then you'll see the POS column. That's their positional rank. So that's what the colors are based off of. And then you'll see the OVR. That's their overall rank in fantasy. That includes goalies. That includes defensemen, all forwards, just about everyone. No, that includes everyone, not just about everyone. Then team, your team is listed. You won't see this for number one picks because.
Move on from overall, I know you wanted to point out the fact that you kind of touched on it, but there can be a huge gap between the two.
Oh yeah, well, and you'll see this especially with wingers, centers. It's ridiculous. Like there's in the NHL.com database, they'll have 300 centers every year, and they'll have maybe 140 left wing, 160 right wing, and then some years it'll flip flop. But the point is, you're getting double the centers that you're getting wingers. So it's very easy to be a top 60 winger. You can put up 2.5 points per game and be the 60th overall winger. It's kind of ridiculous in NHL.com. So the overall rank is what I would put far more stock into, except for goalies and defense are safe from that. You never have to worry about that positional ranking being wonky, but definitely with centers, left wings, and right wings, it's a little bit misleading in this. I was going to try to fix that, but it would be an absolute nightmare amount of work to get positional rankings going back to 2004, 2005. So I'm not bothering with it. So it's just a little flaw in the project, but it's a small flaw, and I can very much live with it. Oh, I got to stay hydrated tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a lot of talking.
Yeah. Okay, so then if you just keep going from left to right here, you can see the team. Like Ovechkin never left Washington. He's a left winger his entire career. Then the GP. These are pretty standard. So this is the Prospects2Pros scoring setup. All these columns are listed. So you have your games played, goals, assists, shots on goal, power play goals and assists, shorthanded goals and assists, hits, blocks, and your face-off wins and your face-off losses. All of these points are then, all of your stats are totaled up into your total fantasy points that you see listed in your FPTS column. That's that nice orange column going down. If you want to know the Prospects2Pros scoring setup, I'll kind of rhyme it off quickly here. You get 5 points for a goal. You get 4 points for an assist. You get a point for any, goal or assist that's on the power play. You get an extra 2 points for any, goal or assist that you score shorthanded. And then for the more auxiliary stats, you get half a point for a shot on net. You get another half a point for a block shot. You get a quarter of a point for a hit, and then you get a tenth of a point if you win a faceoff, and you lose 0.005 if you lose a faceoff. So that equals up your total fantasy points there. As you can see, Ovechkin was just an absolute anomaly right off the bat in his career. Most players will never ever hit 600, let alone 700, let alone 800. Ovechkin did it, right off the bat in his career. So he was just a crazy, crazy anomaly.
Yeah,
And then
he was
you'll
the
see the
best player
two
in the league in his first season.
exactly. That's probably never going to happen again.
Moving on.
Especially especially in an era that we're in right now. It's going to take an absolute insane talent to do it. Then you have the bash tier. This is a really great tier if you're looking at what's your player's baseline. So if you don't want to project, how many points are they going to score this year, this is going to tell you what are they probably going to put up on any given night if they don't score. So that's your shots on net, your hits, your blocks, your face-offs. That is the bash stat. So it tells you how many points per game in that season are derived each game just from those auxiliary stats. If you look at Ovechkin, you'll think these are normal numbers. These are the outlier of the outlier numbers. Heck, I am dry tonight. Just
Mr. Shoots everything, does well on Bash. What a surprise.
One thing you'll notice when you look through enough players, Bash tends to rise from year 1 to year 6 to 7 where it peaks. Usually you'll see about anywhere from half a point, which is the average, I would say, half a point rise from their rookie year to their 6th, 7th season. Some players will go up a point, some players will go up even a little more, but anywhere from about half a point to usually 0.7 is the average rise. Ovechkin was, he went up slightly over a point, which 431 per game in Bash, that will never be replicated.
That's insane.
Never. For one, because teams are shooting, not only teams, but players are shooting less nowadays because teams have decided instead of going for the throw it on the net approach, we're going to rely on high value slot shots, which I actually understand. It makes a lot of sense. If you can prioritize getting good shots, why not do that?
But he had
the point is,
528 shots and 243 hits.
Yeah, if he was a center, I wouldn't even. He might have been able to cross like 4.5, 4 3/4. Like it's just ridiculous numbers.
Well, his face-off percentage wasn't great, but
he was never gonna. Yeah, Ovechkin was never gonna do it. But still, it's the second best player in terms of Bash that you'll ever see is Austin Matthews. That guy is just incredible. We'll get to that a little later, though. So yeah, we've basically gone. In the last tier, the last real tier of importance, I would say, is the scoring tier. This is what you want to look at with young players. This is what you want to look at with. I would say this is the more important tier, generally speaking, because players in fantasy, Bash is great, but it's most of your production is always going to come from scoring, unless you're talking about the depth players, which have a lot of value in Prospects to Pros. But when we're talking about the best of the best, you're not talking about Bash. You're talking about scoring.
Yeah.
And you're talking about what is their scoring ceiling. And 7.25 points per game there from Ovi is, that's crazy numbers.
7? Where is that?
Now,
what year is that?
7.25 in year 5. Just one, just one down.
I was just gonna say we
crazy
were
numbers.
Absolutely gassing and juicing his 0809 for the Bash. The scoring is still way higher.
And crazy. Oh yeah, but you know what I think is really interesting? Scroll all the way down to the bottom of the number 1. So actually, you want to go a little slower, and maybe just so if as you see here, every single number 1 overall pick. You can see every single number 1 pick from 2004 until 2025. And every year, we will update this spreadsheet to add the next season along with the next pick. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really useful tool for people. And I'm actually starting to add a few other little things here, like prospect draft year points per game, the career tiers, which we'll get into a little bit later here. But there's a lot of little features I'm starting to add. The one here you see at the top with year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm probably going to get rid of that because it's only really relevant to the top 10 picks. Because generally speaking, most players don't play year 1. Most players don't really play year 2. Like it takes most people year 3, year 4 to break in, except for the top of the top prospects. So that data becomes more or less irrelevant once you get past like pick 10. So
and then
it's
as
neat.
well, you don't have guys that play 21-year careers outside of pick 1 very often.
Yeah, it's few and far between that make it that far. Like I was just running through the tier. There was one of the tiers that has like 195 players in it, and like 2 of them made it to year 21. So it's one of those. It's not a commonality to see lower level players have incredibly long careers unless they started much later, like a Matt Zuccarello, for example. He's kind of a good example. Although he was a UDFA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So
Yes,
we were talking about him earlier today. We just started tracking a few UDFAs, but we're not going to get too deep into that because that is a whole other beast. Although we will definitely track a few. I kind of want to see Colin Graff. Not going to lie.
So, do we want to move to the tiers?
Yeah. So I was going to show something about Celebrini, but we can get to that in a bit. The tiers are definitely. This is something that I would say is Stuart and our like. This is like, how do I say that? This is our baby, I guess. Like,
Congratulations.
These tiers.
Thank you, Riley.
These tiers became the heart of the project. I would say.
Yeah, it was originally just like I want to see like how long do you have to wait to get value from a pick, and then it turned into like, oh, we're putting all these players in tiers. This is kind of fun, and then it turned into like I should put every single player in each tier together, and then look at how they average out for each season. And that's where the project got really, really fun. So that is now the heart of the project, I would say. And it kind of has taught me a lot of things about like where players are headed. And it really like I'm excited to kind of show you, Riley, and show everyone that's listening everything we've learned here. So let's talk about these tiers, Stuart, because we kind of started a little bit, but yeah. So we've gone through most of the pick, and the spreadsheet here for number 1. Let's kind of explain our criteria and more or less our philosophy for how we rank these players in tiers, because the greatest part about this, Stuart, is there's not a single shred of subjectivity involved, which means there's really no ability to have an argument about, ooh, this player belongs in this tier or you're wrong about this. Like, no, we're not. Like, we have a very strict criteria. We follow it 100% of the time. And it means that sometimes you would expect a player to be in one tier and they're not. But then you can go back and be like, oh, that's why. And that I think is nice. So, yeah, because we like consistency around here. So let's kind of start, Stuart, with.
Should I switch over to the pick tier tabs?
No, stay over here for now. So let's find a player. I'm trying to think of one we can use. You know what? Go to the number like 2 or 3 pick for me. Try number 2. And just keeps. Yeah, so Malkin's not a bad example, or Bobby Ryan you can use too. Actually, yeah, let's use Bobby Ryan. I like him. He's a good example. So for skaters, the way we wanted to do this project was, if you're an active skater, we want you to be. We want the tier that you're in for your career to be indicative of your career as a whole, not just like the last 2 or 3 years, not the last 5 years. Like it's a snapshot of your entire career. Now, while a player's active, we originally, Stuart, we were counting every sample size, or were we just excluding 9 games or less? How did we originally do it?
Originally, we were excluding 9 games or less because we were like, that's just a 9-game trial. It doesn't necessarily show you what the player is going to be going forward.
That started with Cole Caulfield.
Yeah. It was the Cole Caulfield conundrum that allowed us to, or kind of forced me to, badger Stuart to say like, no, we need to raise it because there's players like Beniers, Caulfield, and others I can't think of right now, but those are the first 2 I always think of because they're high picks that got knock down multiple tiers because they had very small sample sizes in their, I believe, first. Like Beniers had a small sample size in his first year because he signed out
I mean,
of out of the NCAA, and then Caulfield in year 2 had a very small sample because of his signing late out of, wasn't it like Wisconsin?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, anyways, we basically just said like Caulfield playing in a 9-game season. That's not indicative of the last. And then if you look at his career, he's had what 5 or 6 years now of like pretty much full season sample sizes. So, including that 9-game or what was it, 13 or 11 games? It just 15 games. I don't remember. It was a small sample for Caulfield, small enough that we didn't feel like it was fair to include that. And it means that if we're not including it for Caulfield, we have to be 100% fair across the board, and we don't include sample sizes. And we eventually landed on this. We eventually landed on 16 or less we don't include.
because that's a quarter of the season.
It's actually less. The reason for that
Is
is
it? Or is
16,
it close?
16 games is just under 20%. If you go to
Yeah, there we
17
go.
games, it's over 20%. So that was my mathematical reasoning for
And that's
that.
only to
If you're not
start a
playing
career?
20% of the season, no, that's in any season while a player is active.
So this past
So if
season
you're
for
still,
Barkov?
we did not include that in his average, no. Which I think makes sense because if you're looking at Barkov, you don't include the 1 year that he missed with a torn ACL. That's not indicative of his career. Obviously, if you own him, it sucks to get nothing from him, but you knew that more or less coming into it. Well,
Also,
it happened in the preseason.
also to note, for goalies we include everything because goalies are going to have small sample sizes, so we have to include everything.
Yeah, I guess my basic reasoning for this is that you can't trust a goalie from year to year. And I think there's like 2 or 3 realistically that you can in this whole project that are, in the top tiers. And the only reason they're there is because they've been on great teams and they've been incredibly consistent for long periods of time. Most goalies, though, have either very slow starts or they have drop offs or they have bad years here and there. And in fantasy, this is the big thing. Like if you listen to Apples and Genos, give them a little shout out here. Their 0G strategy is something that I follow in every startup draft because, goalies don't play enough nowadays to actually return value. The whole point of that is like if you look at most sports and the way analytics have gone, teams have realized like in whether it's running backs in football, goalies in hockey, pitchers in baseball, let's not wear out these guys that are playing at high stress positions because they're incredibly important and we need them for the stretch run. So whereas goalies used to get 70 plus games, you might get one in a season that gets over 60. And that means their value as a whole throughout total seasons is going to be quite a bit reduced. Like just imagine if you had a skater that played 50 games every year, aka Josh Norris. That's why he's knocked down significantly further than you'd expect him to be because, hey, he doesn't play enough. Sure, his points per game puts him 2 tiers, should put him 2 tiers ahead of where he actually is, but he doesn't play enough. And as something Stuart loves to say,
availability is an ability.
See, he knows exactly where I'm going.
Okay, Stuart, but you gotta give credit to whose quote that actually is.
That
It's
is
Stuart's quote.
Well, it's kind of a stolen Tomlinism.
I know. You should have just taken credit for it, Stuart. This is a hockey podcast. Nobody would know that.
I would know.
I don't want NBC's newest hire coming after me.
Is he on NBC now?
He will be on NBC this year.
Good for him. That'll be fun. All right. Continuing on, because we could go on a tangent there. So with skaters, we're very consistent. We did come up with one criteria later on where, and this is one we might have to look at. It's about in terms of like if a player falls off a cliff in like a skater. What was it again, Stuart? We wrote it down, I think, and it's like, if a player falls below or if a player plays less than, a certain amount of games and it's not because of injury, it's because of like performance or it's, you know, like just decline related, then we end up counting that in the sample, even if it's less than, I
Like
believe, 16 games.
like yeah. I'm trying to find
You're not going to see any of these guys in the top picks most likely because their declines are generally a little more graceful. You see it a lot more with the later mid picks because those guys just come and go. Um, so we'll get to it later. It's not something we're going to have to cover tonight. So I wouldn't worry too much about
I
it,
wonder
Riley.
if Daniel Sprong Daniel
Think of
Sprong
it.
would count for that. That's a name that comes to
You
mind.
probably would
Yeah,
think of this as like a unit, and it's like we're going to teach you that later in the unit, Riley.
I'm looking forward to it.
Professor Kevin. Alrighty. So, no, I like Commissioner Kevin way better. Here we are. So, yeah, Stuart, let's go to, oh yeah, Riley, you've got control of the
I do.
spreadsheet. And you go to I need to be able to see the tabs at the bottom of your screen. Oh, is it because I'm zoomed in? All right, so if you want to go to the pick tiers, beautiful. All right, so we've already got the first 4 tiers and their percentages mapped out for you all.
So this is the first overall pick, second overall pick, third overall pick, fourth overall pick.
Yeah, and it just tells you your percentage of getting a player in each tier.
And why is this called this?
Oh yeah, Stuart, why is the 551 Club called the 551 Club?
So the 551 Club is players that for their career have averaged more than 551 points a season.
And what is the name
Yeah,
we have for
and
this tier, other than the name 551? Is
it's
it
the 551
is it
Club.
not also the
That's
color
the
name?
name of the tier. I guess the maroon tier.
Maroons.
I just call it the 551 Club because it's incredibly exclusive. Every other tier has at least like 30 players. The 551 Club has 8. So it's so exclusive, it's a club.
It's not a colored
It's like a
section.
secret society. Exactly. So basically, when we were sorting all these players, one of the reasons we wanted to do this as a career kind of overlook, not just say like 2 or 3 year overlook, is that in fantasy, if you're sorting players, from 2004 to 2026, you kind of want to look at the entirety of their career, not just like I don't want to just find out about the last 4 years of Ovechkin and hear that he's still pretty good, but like no, I want to hear like the fact that Ovechkin's been absolutely dominant for 20 straight years. So doing this as an entire career snapshot to me just makes this, not only is it more interesting, but I think it gives you it's far more helpful when you're looking at the overview of a player's career and you want to say like how is he going to progress or regress throughout his career, and then you can compare him to 30 to 180 other players that are very, very similar statistically. And I think this is where this project really comes to a whole new level.
And the
And
other thing I just want to add quickly, because we're looking at data from going way back to 2004, there are a lot of guys who have retired in that span, like started between 2004 and now and retired and had like, a 11 to 14-year career or something. And we felt it was important to capture that whole career that they had instead of like just looking at what they were at their peak.
yeah, and I think because the thing about this is like prospects to pros is dynasty. Like if we were a redraft, we would definitely be looking at things in a vacuum, but if you're doing a deep dive and you're a dynasty format, I think it's only it's only fair for us to give you the whole overview of the entire career and for us to kind of put it into
And
context.
again,
So
your
these
your
tiers,
main thing when you started out on this project was that you wanted to see the value of pick one. And in a dynasty format, that's what is the value of that player across their career.
yeah, and I mean this is this is something like if you look at the spreadsheet here that Riley has open, so you can see that a home run, if you have the number one pick, you've got a 50% chance of getting a home
Which
run.
is
The 551 club or the red tier, which is 451 to 550 points per season. Now, Riley, I want you to open up the 551 club, and we're going to quickly go over the players in this tier, because what you notice with this tier is it's pretty much all number one picks. And not just number one picks, but the best number one picks in the last 20 years.
and then Nikita Kucherov,
And
Leon
there's
Draisaitl, and that's it. That aren't first
and that's
overall
it.
picks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And you might say, like, well, what about, other guys like Pasternak, Makar, Jason Robertson? Like, you can think of a few others that are really, really good. Stamkos, Tavares, incredible players.
Kaprizov.
Incredible players. Kaprizov for sure, yeah. Like, there's Quinn Hughes, maybe. The whole point is there's a reason why this tier is so exclusive. And it's because every single player in this tier at one point put up 10 points per game, except for Celebrini, and he's going to do it at some point. They just got Ivar Stenberg, so that's all but solidified. Yeah, like every player in this tier has put up 10 points per game, which not a single player in the red tier ever accomplished. So right off the bat, you've got one thing that separates this tier from every other tier. Not to mention, these guys, they're the only players that are averaging over 551 points per season throughout their entire career. So it's not just these guys had amazing, it's not just like they had an amazing peak and then fell off a cliff. No, like they've been consistent for 10, 15 years. Some of these, Celebrini is only going into year 3. But if let's look at something really, really interesting here. Riley, can you scroll down to Celebrini for me, please? Lovely. So if you look at Celebrini and then you look at that green, that scoring right there, 6.56 in year 2. If you then scroll up, or actually, you don't even have to scroll up. 6.56. How long did it take McDavid to hit that?
Year 4.
Matthews, Matthews, it was year 8. Or
Yeah.
sorry, no.
Year 5.
Year 6.
No, year 6, yeah.
Year
Because
6.
703.
Yeah.
So my point with Celebrini is he's doing what other players in this tier eventually did, but it took them 2, 4, 5 years longer to get
In
there.
some cases.
So I have absolutely no doubt that Celebrini is going to hit 10 points. He might hit 11. He might hit 12. You really never know. It really will come down to in San Jose, can they get their own Lane Hudson? Can they get their own Quinn Hughes? Can they get, well, they're getting Stenberg. So we know that he's going to have an elite running mate coming.
Didn't do it until
if they take a defenseman, I know, eh? It's incredible. Like, Celebrini's just on another planet. He really is. It's really hard to put into words just how good this kid is. Now, don't get me wrong. Crosby surpassed him in year 2, but Crosby had Malkin. He had a very good team at that point, if I'm not mistaken.
He beat him in year 1, but then fell off on year 2.
No, he didn't. I take it back. Crosby did not have a good team in year 2. I don't think it was until year 3 when the Penguins broke out with Crosby. Either way, Crosby, Celebrini, like if you're looking at who to model Celebrini after, I think Crosby's a pretty safe career arc. And if Crosby hadn't had those concussions, he probably would have had a few 11, 12-point seasons, because that one year, he was just about to hit 11 points per game. Like, outrageous numbers.
And
so,
like,
yeah.
Just to sort of put in context, like, like in 24, 25, people were down on Austin Matthews a bit because he dropped from 69 goals to 33. He still had 600.35 fantasy points that year in a quote-unquote down year. Like, the down years for the guys on this list are just ridiculously high for anybody else.
And
Exactly.
again, for
It's
him in particular, that's because, as Kevin alluded to earlier, his bash is so sustainable.
Yeah, Matthews once. Oh, I was going to say once Berube gone. No, Berube's gone. We're recording this on Wednesday, May 13th where it's about 10:49 p.m. here. So, yeah, Berube's gone, and his usage is going to change, and he's getting Gavin McKenna. So, wheels up for Matthews.
Now predict the first and second overall pick. That means it has to be wrong.
Yeah. So one thing I want to kind of talk about before because we've looked at the 551 club here. One thing I want to talk about is if you get the number one pick. So look at the pick tiers here for a second. So if you have that number one pick, and let's say people are saying like, hey man, like what would it cost me to give up the number one pick? All right. So Riley, if you have a 50% chance of getting a 551 club player or a red tier player, I'm going to ask you something. Now go to the red tier for me. We're going to skip ahead a little bit, but this is important. Now I want you to look at. It's a little blurry on my end. I hope the picture quality is a little better on yours, but you can see the red tier players here. So it starts from oldest to youngest. So you start out with Malkin, you go down to Kopitar, Giroux, Patrick Kane, Steven Stamkos, John Tavares, Scheifele, Hellebuck, the only red tier goalie, Barkov, Pasternak, Point. Yeah, I could keep rhyming off these players, but the point is, like, yeah, as you get to the younger guys,
Again,
Quinn Hughes, Brady Tkachuk, Cale Makar.
Makar and Quinn Hughes, like probably the top two defensemen of the generation.
Oh, yeah, and then you've got there's only 4 defensemen in this tier, I believe. No, 5. It's Matthew Schaefer, it's Lane Hudson, it's Moritz Seider, who has proven that you can get into the red tier averaging less than 6 points per game if you never ever miss a game. That's the key. You're not allowed to miss a game in your career.
Availability.
Yeah, and he just put up 3.76 scoring points per game. So, if he can keep raising that scoring, good Lord, I'm excited for Seider. He's such a fun player. I want to see him in the playoffs. He deserves to play in the playoffs. He's going to be appointment viewing.
He
put
needs
it that
to go
way.
to school of Dustin Byfuglien first.
But if you, I know, right? Yeah. So if you look at the red tier, it's incredibly exclusive. Your defense are the top defensemen, all the top scorers. It's a pretty incredible tier. So the whole point is, if you have a 50% chance of getting this type of player with the number one pick, go back to the pick tiers for me, Riley. Yeah. So if you're looking at the pick tiers here, and you have a 50% chance of getting a player that's anywhere from like Lane Hudson, Matt Boldy, Malkin, Ovechkin, Crosby, Celebrini, you've got a 50% chance of getting that kind of player. And the other 50% chance is like, you're talking about Caulfield levels, like a 50% chance of getting a Cole Caulfield, or a 10% chance of getting a, trying to think of a yellow tier forward, like an Andrei Svechnikov, or a 10% chance of getting a Uri Slavkovsky, who's currently a green tier player. Or then you go down to the blue, and that's like your Alexis Lafreniere.
Have not gotten.
And then by the time you get down to the lowest tiers, like the purple and the gray, you're talking about like 5% chance of that's your pick if you're picking number one. And this is where I want to then look at, okay, if you have the number one pick this summer, how do you compare? Yeah, go back to that, Riley. Go back to number one.
Up a good point to talk about. First of all, we didn't say what JAG was, did we?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about the tiers quickly, because we've kind of skipped a lot of that conversation. But I think most people, if you're looking at the spreadsheet, you'll kind of understand how the tiers work here. But I'm going to explain the tiers quickly. So you've got your 551 club, which is your creme de la creme. You've got your red tier, which is your 451 to 550 points per season average. Then you go down to the orange, which is 401 to 450. So most of these tiers are just 50-point tiers. So then you go down to yellow, and it's 351 to 400. Green is 301 to 350. Blue is 251 to 300. purple, which used to be a 100-point tier, but then I split it up yesterday because I wanted to do more work. So purple is 201 to 250, and then gray is 151 to 200. Then any player from 70 points per season to 150 is called a JAG. And that stands for, Stuart, what does it stand for?
Just another guy.
Yeah, those are your roster pluggers. I would call the Jags and the gray tiers are these are the players you want either in a no, these are the players you want in a rebuild. Because the gray tier and Jags are like cheap depth or expensive depth that doesn't produce. Great when you're in a rebuild. Gray, if you look at the gray tier, oh, I'm really excited for that episode because it's like these are the players you want because they're super expensive, they play lots of games, and they don't do anything. Super valuable in a rebuild, especially with our new semi-new gameplay limits that we had in last year. These players are suddenly going to be super coveted in startup drafts, especially if you're building young. So we'll get there, but the whole point of this is like, what's your if you're trading number one and someone that has number 3 or 4 comes to you and says, okay, I'm going to offer you pick 3, a first rounder next year, which if that's another top 5 pick, okay, that's interesting, but you're never guaranteed number 1 in these leagues. You can build the worst team, have the least amount of points, but you still got to win the consolation bracket. So my advice would be, if you get a number 1 pick, unless you're in a draft that's really bad, take the number 1 pick and use it on the best player in the draft. And then just pray that player turns into a home run. And you've got a 50% chance. If you look, the next pick in the draft only gives you a 14% chance of a home run. No other pick offers you any higher. 3rd overall, you're down to 9. 4th overall, you're back up to 14. At 5 overall, I'm guarantee you it shrinks back down probably like 9% or 5%. So the whole point is, if you have number 1, you've got, it's the best lottery ticket you're ever going to get. So don't waste it. So Riley, I want to put this into context for this year. Go to the number 1 tab for me, please. And then scroll down just to that prospects draft year point per game. When I was saying earlier, you want to look at scoring points per game for young players. So this is the context we would like. Yeah. So this is essentially the green tab for all of these players in their draft year. So you can see Connor McDavid, he put up 2.87 scoring points per game in his first year. I like this because this is interesting context, and it's not perfect, but I think it's interesting because if we're looking at this year's crop, the top 2 players in this year's crop, I believe, and I need to get the data. I don't have it on me right now. Of course, I don't have it on me. Here we go. Prospects2Pros database.
Yeah, because it's not perfect. Like, Uri is a great outlier with 0.65.
Oh, he's a fantastic outlier.
I'd say like the other kind of outlier would be Patrick Kane, which sounds weird, but if you look at what he put up for his draft year, like -1, he probably should have been a 551 player.
The only pushback I would say there is, and you'll see this with a lot of players that were drafted in the top 5, there is something I would like to call like overpowered junior roster, or like Batman Robin syndrome. It's 2 slightly different things, but like Patrick Kane I would put on the like overpowered junior roster. Yeah, and just like he had Sergei Kostitsyn, he had
Corey Perry?
He had another player. Yeah, Corey Perry. He had a few others. Maybe not Corey Perry. No, Corey Perry was 2003 draft. No, that's Bobby Ryan. It was Bobby Ryan, Sergei Kostitsyn. Just a ridiculous team. Like for junior standards, you're talking about like Hall of Fame players together. There's a reason he put up 150 points. You can make the exact same argument for like Dylan Strome. You can make the same argument for Alex Turcotte. There's so many players I can think of where it's just like, hey, he was staple to a number 1 pick and it inflated his draft year production.
And McKinnon.
You could, Yeah, exactly. Same thing there.
That one's Batman and Robin.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was because Drouin had the Batman production and McKinnon had the Robin production, but in terms of their actual value, it was inverse. But the whole point is like, you can't, draft year production is not in any way indicative of what a player is necessarily going to do because, and this is the hardest part about scouting, like when I'm watching players, and I was thinking about this earlier today, like when I'm scouting, I'm not really like, I don't know how to tell you if a player is going to be better than someone else in 5 years. I don't have enough like gritty, nitty gritty hockey knowledge to be able to tell you like this guy's skating is going to improve. I also don't know these kids. I don't get to see, like, I don't see their work ethic. I don't see what they're like in the gym. I don't get to see any of that. So there's been a few times where like I was like so high on a kid, and then I found out like a year and a half later, it's like, oh, this kid's awful. Like he's been kicked off 4 teams in a year and a half. You might know who I'm talking about, Stuart. And that just sucks. But it was like, hey, I saw something in this kid. I thought he was like gonna rise, and he theoretically did a little bit, but then the off ice issues plagued the crap out of him. So like, came to Kingston, never played a game. It was just one of those things. But it's yeah, like it's, you're never really gonna know personally about these prospects, and that's where, hey, we're going to try to get you more data, more information, but like even NHL teams aren't necessarily going to know as much as they would like to on all these kids. So in terms of draft year production, there's certain things you can look at to say like, okay, if you're putting up 2+ scoring points per game in your draft year, your bust percentage is like probably less than 5%. That doesn't, I wouldn't say that guarantees you to be a star. Like I'm not going to throw Byron Bader numbers here to be like, oh, you have a 65% chance of being a star if your scoring percentage or your scoring numbers are like 2.3 in your draft year. I'm not going to do that, but like if you just look at the top 2 players in this year's class, and I have their data now in front of me, I updated the numbers for Stenberg to give him the current SHL NHLE because the SHL took a pretty good leap last year. So he's at 2.31 scoring points per game. And then McKenna's at 2.3. So basically the exact same. There are no prospects in our database that were even close to Stenberg, in their draft year in the SHL. Like he's a solid half a point per game in fantasy numbers, higher than Backstrom, higher than Lindholm. I think Lindholm was like 1.9 or 1.87 off the top of my head. It's a gap, and it's a big gap.
If you're just looking for like regular stats in the SHL, the only comparables you have are the Sedin twins.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where sometimes a player will have really good numbers in the J20 and they'll have awful numbers in the SHL in their pro year or in their draft year. It's incredibly rare to see like someone dominate in the pros in their draft year in the SHL. And he did it with like not the most ice time either. He got considerable ice time, but not Vigo Bjork numbers. And actually, I want to touch on Vigo Bjork quickly here because I was talking to Stuart about this, where it's like, sometimes you might question a player's draft year, like, oh, can they, build off it? Do they have any physical development left? And sometimes it's also like, oh, they did this in a small sample. With Vigo, I have absolutely no doubt he's going to be an amazing NHL player, and here's why. He put up 1.09 scoring points per game in his draft year in our model here. So, and 1.09 doesn't mean he was scoring a point per game or over a point per game. This isn't fantasy numbers. So you have to kind of readjust the way you look at, scoring numbers, because we don't use the, typical points per game. It's all fantasy numbers here. So, but 1.09, that puts him in line with Mika Zibanejad in his draft year. So just for some context, we're talking about like that good of a player. Now with Vigo, sorry, what were you going to say, Stuart?
Oh, I was just going to add that Vigo, like, I forget exactly when, but like second near the end of the season, like probably the last like 2-3 weeks of the season, and then in the SHL playoffs, he was the number one center
Yeah, exactly.
as an
That's exactly
18-year-old.
that's exactly what I was going to say. So there's no question about can he play? Can you put him out against a team's best line? Can he play pro minutes against an amazing player or up against amazing players with amazing players? He can do it. He's already proved that in the second best league in the world. Yes, the SHL in every single model now is the second best league in the world. So if
And
as an
it's
18-year-old, if he can play 20 minutes a night, score at the same rate Zibanejad did, I've got no doubt he's going to keep improving once he gets to the NHL. I have no doubt he's going to be able to be used in high usage, high deployment, which means he's going to score a lot in the NHL. If you're getting 18 to 20 minutes a night, you're going to score. That's just the way it is. You might not score 70 or 80, you might only score 50 or 60, but you're going to score. So, yeah, like I have no concern about Bjork. And it's also because not only did he put up amazing numbers in the SHL, he put up outrageous numbers in the J20. He was dominant in the World Juniors. Like he also made the World Championship team today, if I'm not mistaken.
yep,
Yeah.
both he and
So,
Stenberg.
like, what else does he have to do? Like, I'm not going to come out and say like he's a 99% chance of being a star, but like I have a 0%. He's not going to bust. And like as someone picking 5 overall in a fantasy draft and a team that desperately needs a center, yeah, I'm going to be considering him. It's going to be Malhotra. It's going to be Carls, because Carls, if you look at him, he projects to be, let me just quickly pull him up, 1.53 scoring points per game for Carls. So if you want to compare him to some other first overall picks, let's just quickly look at some of our defensemen. So you've got Owen Power at 1.02, so he clears him clearly by quite a bit. Eric Johnson at 1.38, Ekblad at 1.14.
I'd add that Power was playing college versus Carl's playing WHL.
Yeah, it's a harder environment, okay. But here's the thing though, I think it's fair because we take that into account. Like you get more points for a goal if you score in the the college. So that's all factored in. Like Celebrini put up 2.66. Levshinov, actually, if you just go to number 2, like it's completely fair, I think, because Levshinov, he put up in his draft year, 1.5, right on the dot. So 1.57 for Carls, or 1.53, I said? Yeah, 5.3. Either way. So you're saying Carls is in that Levshinov tier with production. The other thing about Carls, I'm just going to quickly add this in. I don't have the file in front of me, but his month-over-month increases, not to mention his jump from his draft -1 to his draft year, is exceptional. By the end of the year, so I split prospect data into 3 sections. Carls rose to 1.9 scoring points per game by the end of his season. So for the final 2 months, he was on a tear, and then he carried that into the playoffs. And Stu and I were watching some tape, and it's like he moves like a number 1 defenseman. He has the vision, the passing, the physicality. Like to me, he's a more skilled Drew Doughty.
He's got that weird like hunched stance at times.
It's the only thing about him where I'm like, I don't know if I love that. But other than that, I have no concerns about Carl. So it's like, we're getting way into the weeds here on tangents. But Stuart and I were doing some tape watching. But the point is, like this year's class, you've got some great options. So we talked about Bjork, we talked Carls. We've talked about all those big guys. So within the 551 club, do I think anyone in this year's draft has a chance to hit that? I mean, if you look at McKenna, 2.3 scoring points per game, that puts him in the Tavares kind of range. I also think McKenna's more of a Patrick Kane type player, though. I actually think he's kind of somewhere between like Marner and Kane. And if you look at both of them, like Marner put up, 2.34. So he's actually kind of right in line with Marner. And if he had played, if McKenna had stayed in the WHL and played with Pickford and the Ruck brothers and the returning Andrew Basha, and oh my goodness, what a crazy team. If he had been there, he would have had 155, 160 points this year. So
easily.
So he would have been probably crossing 3 points per game scoring. So
I think
yeah,
I think the discourse around McKenna, because he struggled to adapt to the college game, or looked like he was struggling to adapt to the college game initially, um, versus if he had stayed in junior and just been a complete dominant point producer, like, I feel like we wouldn't be having the, "Oh, this is a bit of a weak draft at the top."
oh,
No,
it's not. It's
if he
really not a weak draft at
No,
all.
it seems to be
It's weak
it
after a
seems to be
certain point,
strong at the very top with
but
forwards, and then you have a class of defensemen, and then your second class of forwards.
I would say this. I would say there's only a select number of like guys I'm very confident in terms of their projections, and then after that there's a bunch of wild cards, and then after that there's like I see some value like the Alexander Beleckis where it's like okay, I think he's an easy kind of second third tier guy to project or second third pair defenseman, but like I'm not sure after that how much value is there in the second round, third round. Like I'm a little iffy on this year's depth, but it I also haven't watched enough tape this year, so I really don't want to speak on it outside of like maybe 10 to 20 players, if I'm being completely honest. So, but yeah, if you're just talking about this year's draft and like what I would have to give up to get number one or to move up, I would say if you're picking in the top 5 to 7, you should feel pretty good this year. And if you just look at the
So if you
data,
wanted to
so
move
I'm
up
going to
from
do you all
if
a
you wanted to
solid with
move
this
up from
episode.
7, what do you think it would take in addition to move up to 1?
Okay, if you're moving up from 7 to 1, like I almost need to add more tiers because if you have a 50% chance of getting a red or a 551 club player, I would like to get not only that 7th overall pick, which if I'm just looking quickly here, it's okay. The 7th overall pick gives you a 10% chance of a home run, like a 30% chance of a triple, which is like an orange to yellow, another 20% chance of a double. So basically, you're talking about. All right, let me just quickly throw some names out here. Like green tier players in their prime right now are like Pavel Buchnevich, Tyler Bertuzzi, Mackenzie Weegar, Sam Bennett, Dylan Strome. Like these are good players, pretty solid players, good fantasy assets. Like Dylan Strome was 30th,
Great
29th
fantasy
overall
asset because of
2
his
years ago.
contract.
That too, but I mean, if you're just talking about like giving up number one, which is
you
just an
probably
incredible.
you'd probably want 3 Dylan Stromes.
Yeah, like realistically, and that's the other thing you have to remember is like you're talking about one player on your team, and this is where like I was working on a new stat, and it's for P2P only, and it's like, how many points do you need to score in a season in in the fantasy regular season to get to the playoffs? And I think the number is 4,200. And
Doing some Billy Bean math over there.
well, no, and it's just the point of like, how close to the playoffs is one player going to get me? And Connor McDavid is basically a 20% like pat like he's him Connor McDavid alone gets you 20% of the way to the playoffs in fantasy in prospects to pros. One asset and you're paying 12 million for him, which next year is like 10% of the cap. No,
Yeah,
that's wrong. No, like 12-13% of the cap. The point is it's not a high number anymore. Like the way I used to look at contracts with like, oh, this player's cap hit is kind of high. You cannot look at contracts that way anymore.
cap
With the
percentage.
It's cap percentage. If you're looking at cap hit, you're gonna really struggle. And the other thing you really need to do is you need to look at the projected cap year in and year out. And this is something I'll help people with some of the spreadsheets I'll be releasing. But you want to have charts for your players to see like, okay, maybe in year 1 and year 2 of this contract, it's gonna hurt, but by year 4, it's a good contract. So if you're willing to eat 2 bad years or 2 somewhat like low value years per se, that's solid. And the way I look at it is like if your playoff percentage, so if the points that you get that lead your team to the playoffs, you want the playoff percentage to be higher than the cap hit percentage. ironically, it's actually not super easy to do. Like Draisaitl last year was just below 0 because he was injured for a bit. If he had played an extra 10 games, he'd be well over. But yeah, it's another tangent. Oh my goodness.
And just on the flip side, and this I think applies to a lot of sort of veteran older guys signing as free agents. There's a decent chance that you'll like the contract for years 1 and 2, and then year 3 and 4, you're like, I'd like to get
But then
it,
if it's year
please.
5, year 5 doesn't
Okay,
feel
so
necessarily as bad with the cap going up. So it can kind of come back around.
So I want to quickly we're gonna share a little bit more of this project than I was planning in the first episode, but I'm enjoying this and we're gonna have fun with this project. So let's just share more of the data now because I think it's fun that way, and it also will make this way easier to explain. So I'm just gonna put this whole progression thing in here because no, we already have
before we
it.
jump to
Never
that,
mind.
I
All
just
right.
want to really
I
reinforce for people, like, try to learn 551 Club, red tier, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, gray, jag. And then the last two you had were prospect
figure
and
out.
bust, which we haven't actually talked about.
Yeah, I'll explain those. So prospect tier is anyone that has played 9 career regular season games played or less. The reason for that is simple. That is our startup draft criteria. Anyone that has played
And
9
they're
games or less, and they have sorry, yes. So a prospect is for a skater is anyone so anyone that's after their D+6 year, which is their 6th year after their draft year. So basically, once a player turns like 24, they age out of being considered a prospect in our model.
and
For goalies,
it doesn't
maybe they
matter
get.
if you were actually drafted in that year.
Mhm, true.
Your draft year is your draft year.
First year of eligibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in our spreadsheets, you'll see that there are a few players I would say that we. Okay. Like, for example, there are some players that are drafted after their draft year, like Tanner Pearson. So his year 1 technically is year 2, but in our spreadsheets, we're not. Like, I'm not going to go in the spreadsheet and be like, oh, Tanner Pearson was technically supposed to be drafted this year. So I'm going to, like, all the spreadsheets, every single pick tab is all the exact same in terms of the layout because it's just every pick from 2020 or 2004 to 2025. So there are some older players that are technically, we'd have to be a little. That's not a big deal. It's not going to. It might apply to like 10 to 50 players total, and we've in this whole project we've tracked just under 4,000 players, I believe. I haven't run the full numbers, but like if you do 224 draft picks times 22 years, granted, there's a few years that don't have that many picks because of expansion, but because the NHL expanded to 32 teams, so there was less picks going back to like 2010, 2011. But the whole point is there, yeah, it's we're going all the way to 1 to 224, and every single pick tab looks the exact damn same. So
And then moving on
dropped
to
a
bust.
damn there. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, so the busts are just any player in their career that put up less than 70 points per season average, and we originally were doing what, like less than 100, and then there was a few players that we didn't really like calling busts in that, so we moved it down to 70. And I think the reason for that was Michael Del Cole came in at like 69 or 68, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable not labeling him a bust. So that kind of became our like,
Michael Del Cole
he's
line.
kind of our bust criteria. Exactly.
Yeah, the Del Cole line.
But also,
Yeah, that's what we'll call it.
I know this is going to be talked about a lot and should be brought up. We looked at the first overall picks, and where does Mr. Nail Yakupov end up in?
Oh yeah, so we were going to call this episode Nail Yakupov is not a bust, and actually he should be in gray down there. We'll have to just that. Don't change the pink too. Just the gray. There you go. Love
You
it.
want me to do it?
Yeah, do it. It's the gray in the bottom row. That's not the right gray. Bottom row. No, it's not the right gray either. It's okay. I'm way too OCD with these spreadsheets. This physically pains me. Bottom row, below that like orangish, yellowish, goldy in the middle of those two. No, bottom row to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right. Keep going to the right, to the right.
Okay.
That one. That's the one. I'm so sorry. Quality podcast content right there. As he gets the right
the
color
crowd went
shade.
wild.
You see what Stuart? This is what Stuart put up with for like 2 months straight. So
Yeah.
you better appreciate him.
So, anyways, Neil Yakupov.
But yeah. So he's not a bust because like if you just go and look at his career progression, it would not have been like if you look at his year one. Okay, it was cut short by the lockout. That was a shortened lockout season, but like
Yep.
4.34 points per game as a rookie. That's puts him in like 551 club, territory right off the bat. Okay, and then he fell, some more. I think he kind of rised a bit, and then he fell again, and then he really fell off a cliff. So the whole point with Yakupov is like he's not a bust because in terms of fantasy hockey value in a 32 team league, he gave you value for like 4 years. It wasn't amazing, but like you have to with this project like we're judging pick 224 the same way we judge pick 1 because we want to tell you like what's your chance of getting this value of a player. So I don't think it's helpful to like change the way we value players, and especially if you had to do like a sliding scale. Like it would just be it would be really complicated, but B, it's just like I think the way that we've done this project, it's a lot more helpful to be like, what are my chances of getting each, kind of block of, what's my chance of getting gray? What's my chance of getting purple or blue?
And
And
because our focus here is what did they give you as a fantasy asset? Neil Yakupov, well, yes, was has been a ridiculously bad first overall pick if you look back on it. Like there's no denying that. But he gave 4-ish seasons of value as a fantasy player. So he is not he's not entirely a bust for our purposes.
yeah, and actually, Riley, if you can just go to the number
Just
1
before
tab
you
for a
do
quick
that,
second, and this
before
is
you do
where I
that, I
want to
just want to
introduce.
bring something up and say,
Yeah,
like,
for
if
sure.
you want to look at it from the way most people do, which is how do I judge it as a first overall pick versus a first overall pick, it's a bust because you ended up in the 9% of the sack fly. When most of the time, half the time, you want to be a home run. But this is kind of just putting like a player like Cole Caulfield as if he went pick number 1, comparing him to Jack Hughes, who did go pick number 1. It doesn't matter where they were actually picked for how this is judged.
Exactly.
And then you wanted
Yeah.
me to go to the 551? Okay.
No, I'll go to the number 1 tab for me, please, sir. And yeah, just stay right there on Yakupov. So if you look at you can't really look at his points in that season because it's going to be a little bit skewed because of the shortened season. So if you just look at his points per game, 4.34 points per game in year 1. Can you please go to progression for me? All right. So if you look on the left side, you'll see the progression for each tier from year 1 to year 21. And then if you look on the other side, you'll see the progression from year 1 to year 21 in terms of their points average per season. So if you look at this chart in year 1, I think I said, what was it, 432, 434?
434.
Yeah. So like if you had Neil Yakupov and he, and you're back in his rookie season or just at the end of his rookie season, and let's say you had this data available to you back then, and it was the same way it is now, you would say, okay, where does Neil Yakupov fit in terms of his year 1 production on this chart? Well, he fits very, very. He's in between the red and the
Top
551
end of the
club.
orange. Yeah, sorry.
In the points per. Yeah, no. If you look at year 1, he's what So year 1 is for the 551 club is 574, and it's 203 in year 1 for the 451 for the red tier. So he's well above the red tier, and I would say he's kind of in the middle. of the two. So you could easily sell him as being like the next big thing at the end of his first year, because his first year was, I wouldn't say historically good, but it was very, very good in terms of what players in that tier normally produce. Okay, so if you go back to Yakupov for a second. All right, Neil Yakupov, year 2, that's a better sample size. He had some injuries, so 3.2 points per game and then 201.50. So then go back to progression. And then look at that progression. So now he's fallen in between the red and the orange. Still valuable, but falling. The points per season is right between the red and the orange. This is where I love this project, because it allows you to contextualize players' progression, especially early in their career, way better than you would if you didn't have this data. So you can kind of see that each year, the fact that he wasn't improving, you can see him just dropping down tiers. And that's where you can kind of realize, okay, so like in year 1, you could sell super high. Year 2, you can still sell pretty high. By year 3, it's getting harder. And then by year 4, it's like, all right, there's next to no value left. If not, you're just selling him on name recognition alone. And that's not a good way to sell a player. So in terms of why Neil Yakupov is not a bust, this tab right here, to me, explains it better than I think any, than I could in a 10-page, essay or thesis. Like, it's at one point in his career, that was an asset that had considerable value.
Yeah. People who were playing fantasy then, probably in dynasty formats at that point, like, you probably could have traded Neil Yakupov for some pretty good players at that point. You would find a believer, you have a way to sell
Easily.
someone into it. And I think that's another way to look at it, right?
Like, you could have probably...
I feel like even... Like, there's a lot of players who will get the benefit of the doubt, especially if they're top picks, and they're able to be in one of these higher tiers for a couple seasons. You should be able to sell on it.
Well, like, Alexis Lafreniere was worse in points per game his first 2 seasons than Yakupov was.
Well, and here's the other thing that's interesting about Lafreniere, for example, and this is something that we really need to explain when it comes to the draft year points per game, because in Prospects to Pros, yes, we don't count points for not underage. We don't count points for prospects until they're drafted. You have to be drafted, or your rights have to be owned by an NHL team for you to collect points in the Prospects League. But if you just look here at like Lafreniere, for example, 2.21 in the queue in his draft year, and scroll back down to his year 1. So this is really cool. I love this. So then you can go see his year 1. He dropped to 1.9. Oh, that's own power. So he dropped to 1.71. And then he slowly rose. It took him to year 3 to get back just beneath his draft year scoring. That to me is like, that's kind of interesting. So that's something you have to consider with, these CHL prospects, is that, yeah, they might have really high draft year totals, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if they come to the NHL, it's going to be, a smooth transition, or they're going to be able to match it or even improve. Like, another good example, like if you look at Jack Hughes, he fell quite a bit from his draft year to his rookie year in the NHL.
Because Jack Hughes came at,
So it's the same thing. Yeah, 2.26, almost half a point per game, in scoring. So it's not a given that you're going to be able to translate it, from draft year to year 1. Eric Johnson needed a year in between to improve. But here's what I find really interesting. So when the Habs took Juraj Slafkovsky 1 overall, this was a bold friggin' decision. And I want to explain why. So go to the number 2 tab for me, please, Riley.
Mind his D-1 was 0.65.
No, that's his draft year, not his D-1. So draft year, that's their, just to be, we'll call it all the same. So the draft year is 0.65. If you look at the second overall pick in his draft, Simon Nemec was at 1.06 in the Slovakian league. Then go to number as a defenseman. Yeah, we do boost defenseman a slight bit, but it's not much of a, it's not too big a difference. I got to fix this tier. Logan Cooley, he's at 1.94 in the USHL. So that's kind of in that Jack Hughes kind of tier, but it's not really your typical number one. Like, he doesn't really have the draft profile of a number one pick. Yeah, Fantilli would have, but he was in a draft with Bedard, so it wasn't going to happen for him. If you go to pick 4, so we're just looking at that one draft right now, and this was the Slavkovsky draft. So yeah, if you just scroll up slightly. Oh no, never mind. You're in the right spot. I'm not used to this. So yeah, Shane Wright, 1.62. That's a solid profile, but like, I've seen a lot of OHL players with that profile, so I can really understand now why Montreal didn't take him at 1. But yeah, they had some humongous balls to take Slavkovsky where they did, because 0.65, like, he's the only player below 1 as a number 1 overall pick. And it was just one of those, like, sorry, go Stu?
But that doesn't include his Olympics or his World Championships.
No, this is just his Liga data. So this is where, and this is where you have to, go beyond sometimes the stats. You have to say, how is his international play? How did he perform in the playoffs? Because I'm not going to include playoff data. So it's, there's a lot of things sometimes you really have to look into to get the full context. And
he's also one of the few first overall picks
I think that was just
saw like a significant scoring rise in their first season.
Well, and that's the other thing I wanted to point out with Slavkovsky. So go down to Slavkovsky, please, because this is something where the narrative surrounding him was completely messed up. And this is why I actually like our system, because it really illustrates that he did actually improve. So 0.65 up to 1.18 in his rookie year. The numbers don't look impressive. And you would think very little of it if you didn't have this kind of data in front of you. But now you see the fact he basically doubled his production from his draft year to his rookie year, and he only put up 10 points in 39 games. And then by year 2, he more than doubled it, and everyone was panicking about him. And then year 3, he might not have improved much from year 2 to year 3, but he still improved. And then boom, year 4, massive takeoff. Like, there were so many people that panicked about Slavkovsky in year 1 and 2. And you look at him now and you're just like, he's right in between like a red and he's basically right at the red tier now, even though he's green for his career because he had a slow start. If you look at last year's production, he's right in with the red tier guys. Where they in, like the average, red tier in year 4 looks pretty much exactly like Slavkovsky, except Slavkovsky scored more points. Similar points per game, just more points. Helps when you play 82 games. That availability, Stu?
Exactly.
No, and that's like, it's an important thing to look at. And that's the other thing I'd look at with like Owen Power. Like, I've seen him go for dirt cheap recently, and he's in a tough spot right now. Like Dahlin, Samuelson kind of having a breakout year, but I wouldn't worry too much about Owen Power, just because I think the best is yet to come with players like him.
Learned anything from this,
not to mention,
looking at first overall picks in general, it's that, like, even if you're trading Owen Power right now, and you're paid, like, some people like might even consider paying to get rid of him, which is stupid for this like sake of this cap, or it's going for dirt cheap, like you said. This guy's going to be in the NHL for a long time.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt Owen Power will be in the NHL for another 10 years.
Pick that we looked at, like as far as a defenseman goes, that's Eric Johnson, who had a 20-year career. So having a fantasy asset for 20 years is
exactly
crazy.
Yeah, it's and here's the thing about the progression too. Like, go to the progression tab for me again, Riley. This is something I want to point out. Can you make that 22 row a little bit bigger, because it's like really like narrow and it's just bumming me out. It doesn't fit with the rest. There you go. That's fine. It's a little bit bigger now. It's okay. Don't worry about it, Riley. Please don't worry about it. You're gonna be like inching it. Like, oh god. All right. It looks good. It looks great. I'm proud of you, Riley. So if you look at that 551 club data, yeah. Like if you're trading a player like McDavid, McKinnon, Kucherov, okay, like look at Kucherov for example. Like he's not going to be. Oh yeah, he's going to be in the 551 club. Oh god, I love this. So yeah, he's going into year 16, and you might think, wow, so he's going to be 34 next year, 35, and you think, okay, that's not good. I got to trade him before he falls off a cliff. But then you look at his tier and you say, oh, I don't really think he's going to decline all that much based off of everybody. Okay, and this is the thing. It's a small sample. Yes, I will say it is a small sample. So, maybe one of these players ends up not fitting this. And, I would venture a guess that one of probably Matthews, Kucherov, or Draisaitl probably falls into the red tier at some point just because of injuries or, situational decline. But at this point, like, it's pretty fair to look at them all and just say, like, hey, in a vacuum, this is how they should do throughout their career. And I think Kucherov has proven that, like, I don't think he's going to decline too much in Tampa. As long as they've got Hagel, they've got
Even if he
Gensel.
does decline into a red tier, he's probably above the average red tier player. So you're looking at something between, like, in year 15, 7.13 and 8.72, which I know is a big difference, but you're still.
Well, he's going, yeah.
Sorry.
He's going into year 16, but I would just, the whole point is he put up some of his best production last year. So there's no signs of him slowing down, which to me just points to the fact that he's a true 551 club player because they don't slow down in their mid to late 30s. They just keep trucking along.
Even,
and then
even if he
when
does
they finally
take
hit 40, it's like
into the next tier, he's still going to be an elite player and an
incredible asset. Oh, exactly. Like he's still a top 30 to 40 asset every year. And then that's, so if you've got another 5 years of elite production left, then like the idea that, I think my window's closing with Kucherov. No, it's not.
Say, like,
your window is still
year,
wide
Sidney
open.
Crosby was not a red tier player. He was actually like an orange tier player. And he was still a great fantasy asset where he put up like 7.41 fantasy points per game, and that's in year 21.
He missed 14 games and he was still the 43rd overall player in his 21st year. Like, come on.
Just if you just sticking on Kucherov, in the last 3 years, he's been the second overall, and the 4th overall player in the league.
Well, technically, Stuart, he declined last year, so that's worrying.
Oh man, he went from 2 to 4.
I mean, technically, his points and his points per game and his points rose, but he declined in overall.
And that's where, again, the 551 club is nice because people can join it without it having to kick others out.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's how it is with every tier. It's all dependent on what you do, and that's why I also like the fact that it's not subjective. It's not like, Stamkos had some injuries here and there. So actually, let's talk about Stamkos for a minute here. We're gonna skip to the red tier for a second. I just want to talk about Stammy because he's my favorite example of like could have been 551.
I know you want to talk about
it. I guess excited, why not?
Let's not overwhelm people.
I didn't realize it's 11:40, so that's also fair. I guess we should go to bed at some point tonight. But I had coffee an hour ago, so I'm doing great. I don't know about you.
This has set up a really good starter because we've gone through every tab. We've explained everything, I think, so far for getting a grasp for it, for someone to go ahead and look at things themselves.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing I want to go for, Riley. One more thing, because I love this kid so much. So our Norris Trophy winner this year was just announced today, Matthew Schaefer.
Calder.
No way.
Calder, sorry. I'm a year early on Norris, but whatever. I'm staking my claim. He's winning Norris next year. All right. So if you go all the way down to the bottom of that, yeah, there you go. Look at that. Matthew friggin' Schaefer. Okay. Here's what's kind of exciting. So I mentioned this earlier in the episode, but generally speaking, most players will see their bash rise anywhere from half a point to maybe 3/4 of a point to a full point and slightly more from years 1 to years 7, maybe 6 in their career. Usually by year 6 to 7, that's when the bash starts to decline because guys are getting older. They don't want to deal with the same wear and tear on their body. Like you really saw with Ovechkin, his hits totals declined a little bit. The shots totals declined a bit. Like he played a crazy style early in his career. But with Schaefer, like this is why I just want to look at him quickly. Look at his points per game at 589 and then that 483 in terms of his total points. And then look at the progression for me, the progression tab. All right. He's ahead of the 551 club in year 1 in points per game, and he's ahead in total points. He's actually ahead of year 2, 551 club in points. I'm just saying, like, there's 2 defensemen at this point that realistically have a stake to the 551 club. Cale Makar would have been there if it weren't for the COVID years being the start of his career. 100% Makar would be there. I think Schaefer will get there. I
also think Dahlin could make
just from a statistical. Dahlin is further away than you would expect, actually.
No, I
had
know.
a bit of a slower start to his career. And when you're looking at career tiers, I think he could get there, but I don't. Something that you realize when you do this project long enough, if you have
hard.
like, it's really hard to get into the 551 club if you have 3 to 4 years that are slow at the beginning of your career, because it weighs the averages down. Like you really like Kucherov was the only player to overcome it so far, and that's because he's just gone thermonuclear the last like 3-4 years. Yeah, it's almost impossible to do. Like there's a reason why every player in the 551 club, like it's the only ones that weren't like incredible right off the bat are McKinnon and Kucherov, and they've both made up for it by being insane. Like McKinnon's gone just out the friggin' roof the last 3 years. Kucherov, same thing. Like you're looking at just insane averages for. I think McKinnon has the best season of all time. Oh no, McDavid does. McDavid crossed the 1,000-point mark one year. Holy crap! I didn't think I would see that, but yeah, 1,007. Holy, that was his 154
Which,
point,
again,
150, yeah, 153 point season.
Something you said earlier, that would be 25% of your way to playoffs.
Yeah, it's a really good way to look at it, Riley. Just under 25%. He put up 9.28 scoring points per game that year. What the hell? Like, I don't even know how to like comprehend those scoring numbers. Oh, it's crazy. That's his only weakness is the bash, like literally. But yeah, he makes up for it. But yeah, no, it's an incredibly exclusive tier, and like I think Schaefer could get there, but then you look at it and you're like, oh, does he have the running mates to really sustain that kind of production? And I would think he does, just because I think the bash is naturally going to increase, and then the scoring should naturally increase as well. And if both just naturally increase, enough to where, like, if he just gets into like Werenski scoring territory, it's game over. Like he's going to be the number 1 defenseman pretty much every year for the next 10 years. Because, and I talked about this last year a bit, like the Dahlin versus Hudson debate, where it's like, Dahlin can score 20 less points and still be in the same range because he's just going to make up for it in peripheral stats. Hudson is rising, but yeah. Dahlin is he's one of those like high end bash guys, but Schaefer's I think he's gonna blow them all out of the water soon enough. Because yeah, I mean that was because Buffalo was actually defending well, so he didn't have to block 150 shots. That's pretty much it. Like they turned into a good team, so his bash declined.
He also didn't have to
you might see the same thing happen with Seider. Exactly. No, that's the difference.
A little more.
Defensemen on bad teams have great bash. Defensemen on good teams have high scoring. It's you generally will take the scoring over the bash because
But
one
also, I feel
offers
like
far
if
more
you're looking
upside
at
than the
that, and
other.
again, this is where the prospect data probably comes in too, is a forward with high bash versus a defenseman with high bash. Well, it really is more situational dependent for a defenseman.
Yeah, like I mean, there's two defense prospects I would look at in this year's draft, and they're very similar from their production, like Dax Rudolph and Carson Carls. And I mean, we were watching Stuart and I were watching Prince George versus Prince Albert, and I don't know how you can come away from that game thinking that like those aren't two drastically different level of prospects. Like the profiles might be incredibly similar from bash and scoring standpoints, but like they couldn't be different players in terms of physical ability, their impact shift to shift. It's like Carl's just smokes Rudolph. So, or at least that's my opinion. Maybe Stuart doesn't agree, but yeah.
No,
So
but
I don't know how we
maybe
got on this
does
tangent.
that wrap us up? Like about good for episode 1?
Yeah, I really don't think I have anything else. Let me just check my notes because I had notes for this episode a while back. I'm in. I'm gonna close this up. There we go. 551. No, I don't really have any questions. Like I was gonna, we were gonna talk about like who could ascend there, but we'll talk about that with the red tier episode. Uh, the only one I was gonna talk, like the one question I really wanted to ask you, Riley, was who does Celebrini drag into this tier? But that was a question I had posed well before they got the number 2 pick. So I think I know who that Celebrini will drag into that
Is
tier
it
now.
Chernyshov?
And I am losing my voice very quickly.
No,
I mean,
I'm
realistically,
definitely
it could be
down with
Misa,
Chernyshov.
but yeah, I mean Chernyshov for sure. But I think Stenberg is the
Still
obvious choice
think
now.
no,
If they take a
they're not going to
defenseman,
take a defenseman.
if they take
Like that
Verhoff,
won't happen. That's not my career. They only take a defenseman if they're trading down. If they keep 2, they will be picking Stenberg or McKenna.
yeah, I mean,
I still think that
yeah, of
Toronto passes
course.
on McKenna
If
and takes Stenberg.
Toronto,
Nope.
it
Oh,
could happen,
you mean
Don't do it.
the new
but I
president, who is a
wouldn't.
former first overall pick Swede, doesn't want to pick a Swede first overall?
Ah, nah, that's way overblown. That's way overblown. I wouldn't like the production might be the same, but Stenberg was playing with good players in Sweden, and this isn't to say that their production is different. I'm just like Penn State's not historically a program where you go to produce high level NHL talents, nor is it a place you go to score a lot of goals in terms of NCAA hockey. Like it might just be because they weren't a strong program, but it's like everyone said, "Oh, like this is such a great team," and I'm like, "Have you seen some of the other Big Ten teams last year? Like Penn State was not that good. They far outperformed my expectations of them, and I think a lot of that was like Charlie Serrato and Jackson Smith taking a huge step. Don't get me wrong, like McKenna was incredible, and he deserves a lot of praise, but um, it wasn't a great situation for him in terms of like he kind of hurt his draft stock in a way because if he had just stayed at Medicine Hat, as we said, like he would have put up ridiculous scoring numbers and there'd be no questions right now. But yeah, he made himself like he put himself in a tough spot. He forced himself to play against better players and do it. Like he could have gone to Michigan State. He could have gone to Michigan. He could have gone anywhere. But instead he went to Penn. Like that's that's making your life difficult, arguably. And I kind of respect him for it. So yeah, I have no concerns that his production technically dropped. Like I don't know. It's a, it's a technically that needs a lot of context. So I think that's where we should close this episode because I could ramble on for another 2 hours with the amount of coffee
So
flowing through
yeah,
my veins.
we're going
So
to be posting both the
we should cut
video
this off
and
now.
the audio. And please, if you want to follow along, or if you just want to open the spreadsheets, those will be posted as well, following along with the spreadsheets. Whenever you hear Kevin say, "Move on to this," you could try to follow along. Um, And then, other than that, do pose us questions about this. And, like, in the podcast channel, please pose questions about anything really. If you have a question about the methodology, if you're having troubleshooting issues, anything, love feedback.
Yeah, we're gonna post the spreadsheet, like the spreadsheet that Riley's been working on. We're gonna post that when we post the episode, so you'll be able to look through the exact same stuff we're looking at. And every single episode will add more and more to it, so you can get more data. I decided to add more than I was planning to add right off the bat because I just think it's way easier to look at things with context when you have that data available. If I just give you partial bits of it, it's not really that helpful. So, yeah, more is better. And I'm looking forward to the red tier, Riley. It's like we've got 11 tiers to go through. We're gonna cap it off with prospect rankings. It's like this is gonna be a lot of fun. And then we're gonna do an entire episode on like windows. We've even like Stuart and I today were putting together like the playoff rosters and looking at like which tiers the players are in for each team.
Yeah,
And
I could easily
I don't
see
know, it's kind
someone
of
being
interesting.
able to
So
look at this and build like a trade calculator using some of those percentages from the pick tiers and stuff and balancing it that way. And
I started doing it, but unfortunately, my math capabilities don't really go that far. Like this is all relatively super basic math. It's just I had time on my hands and I decided to spend it putting together a million spreadsheets. So yeah, it's not.
no,
This
but
is
it's
not
high
high level
level
math,
fun.
folks. Which is I think great because it is well, and it's also just easy to understand. I think like it's pretty well contextualized, and also you don't have to be a genius to understand this. Like we're not digging far into the analytics here. This is just a bunch of dudes and looking at some draft picks and having some fun. So I'm looking forward to this series, and this was a great first episode. I don't honestly think I'm going to do any edits. I think I'm just going to put my audio and your audio together and fire this off because, yeah, this was fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening.